So let's look at another example. This is called a UML diagram. A UML diagram is a diagram to represent the template class. Like this one, we want to say an object is the television. So the first row for the UML diagram is going to explain, pretty much just define the name of the class, TV. And the second row is define the data fields. In this case, you may see we use colon to separate the type and the variable name. Like TV should have channel, and channel should be a type as int, use colon. And TV should have the volume level as int. TV can be on and off as boolean. Now the third row for the UML diagram is going to represent behaviors or the methods of the object. First one is the constructor itself. You may see there are plus signs in front. So this represents the public modifiers to make the method as public. Like first one is the constructor has no type and is public. Second one is you can turn the TV on or turn it off by invoking the attributes of the TV on, off. Set them to on, true, off, false. But we don't have to worry about implementation at this level. UML diagram just show you all the methods that you can invoke when you instantiate an object of TV. And this data type are void. That means there is no return type when you call these methods. We can set the channel by passing the parameters. Make sure you look at when you draw the UML diagram, the variables name coming first and colon and data type int to the parameters, and the type of the method is void. As well as the set volume, new volume level, int, void. So TV you can do channel up, void, and channel down, void, volume up, void type, and volume down, void type. So this is how we construct the UML diagram for TV class template. Now you can have two classes. One is the TV itself, which initialize channels. These are the data fields. Initialize volume and channels to 1 and turn it off by default. On equals off, false. And we have constructor. So this is just exactly what we do on the UML diagram. Now we just implement them. Like set channel, you pass in the number channel, we call new channel. As long as channel is between my channel 1 and 120 and the TV is on, then we can set the channel. Also set volume between 1 and 7. So this is pretty much predefined in the condition here. Channel has to be 1 to 120 and volume has to be between 1 to 7. So that's why we just verified here. Then we can set the volume level. And channel up, that means you're going to increment your channel by 1. Starting from 1 is to 2 and so on. Channel down just decrements by 1. But make sure it's going to be greater than 1 because we do not have the negative channel. Otherwise, we will not do the decrement or channel down. As well as volume up, has to be on and also less than 7, and volume down also has to be greater than 1, and TV has to be on. So that's how we implement the method for TV. Now let's look at how we test the TV. So we pretty much just instantiate the object name TV1 from the constructor of TV, and we can just test the methods turn on. So once it's on, then you can set channel and set volume. Now you see we have two TVs. This is another object, TV2. We can turn on, do channel ups and volume ups, and then we just print out the information of channel and volume level. Then you see that each TV should have its own channel and its own volumes. So this is how we test the TV class template inside the main methods. So you pretty much going to do the same for your assignment. Create two classes. One is the class template, and another one is the class with the main method that instantiate an object of the TV class template, or whatever assignment that you have to do for the class. Now let's look at the review of the constructor from the slide. Constructor without parameters and with parameters, right? Is a special kind of method that are invoked to construct objects. So a constructor with no parameter is referred to as a no arc constructor, or I call default constructor, meaning if you don't create it, it's normally just created by on. Constructor must have the same name as the class itself. Constructors do not have a return type, not even void. Constructors are invoked using the new operator when an object is created. Constructors play the role of initializing objects. So example of creating object using constructor, you can do new circle or new circle and pass the radius. So let's say default constructor, a class may be defined without constructor. In this case, no arc constructor will with an empty body is implicitly defined in the class. This constructor called a default constructor is provided automatically only if no constructors are explicitly defined in the class. Only there's no constructor explicitly defined will create that. So that means if you already have one constructor defined with the parameters or arguments, then you are required to define the constructor with no arc constructors. Otherwise, if you try to invoke it, it will have an errors. And you see something like that on your test too. And most likely, a lot of students make mistake because thought that this is default, you don't have to define it. But it's when I say it's already defined once, if I have constructor with this, you're required to create this, otherwise it's not going to work. But if you have none, then it will automatically create it for you. But if you have one, then you have to create the default constructor. And you see down the test. Now, declaring object reference. So I like to tell you that when we create an object from the constructor, right, which is referring to the class template, then it's due by reference. Right, to reference an object, assign the object to a reference variable. To declare a reference variable, use the syntax. So class name and object reference. So this is called an object reference or object or reference variables. Like here, class name object reference variables equals to new class name. So in this case, my circle is an object reference variable. Accessing objects method members. So you can accessing the members through the dot operators. If that data member is default or public. If it's private, you cannot access that. To access the methods, you use the dot operators too. This is an example. We create a new circle, radius 5, and we create another circle. Name your circle, my circle. See, I declare my circle. It start to create a circle with the radius 5. And like I said, when you declare this way, it's just point to a circle with the radius 5. Assign object reference to my circle. It's just the reference, not the values type, not like primitive data type that we define here. See that? This is primitive data type, you store the actual values. But when you define the object, it's just pointing, right, like that, pointing to the circle, and set the radius to 5. And when you do your circle, it's do the same, but the radius now 1 by default, because circle is set the radius to 1. Now you can modify that 1 by using the dot operators, accessing the class member or class attributes dot radius, and set it to 100. In that case, update it to 100. Caution. You already use the methods format class. We invoke it by using dot pow, like this case is to the power of 3 to the power of 2.5, right? To invoke a method in the math class, can you invoke getArea using simple circle.getArea? The answer is no, because we were talking about explaining what statics, right? So this method are statics, that's why you don't need to instantiate an object. You can just invoke the method through the class name dot method name. So the method used before this chapter are static methods, so that's why you can do it this way, right? You don't have to instantiate an object. However, the getArea is the non-statics, so it must be invoked through the object or instantiation or variables, right? Reference variables. So reference data fields. The data fields can be reference types. Like we were saying, int is primitive type, boolean is primitive type, and char is also primitive type. If you look at string is a class because capitalized S, and this is actually a data field which is a reference type. So data field of string can be a reference type. The no value. If a data field of a reference type does not reference any object, data field holds a special literal values called null. So the default value for a data field, the default value of data field is null for a reference type, 0. For a numeric type, false. So those are the default values when you do declare data fields. And for boolean is false, right? Numeric type is 0, right? Reference type is null. And for char, it's going to be Unicode 0000. Java assigns no default value to a local variable inside a method. So this is when you instantiate an object student from student class, and you want to say student.name, student age, student gender, student is science major. So you invoke the methods, invoke dot operators to get to the attributes or the data fields of the student class. So example of Java assigns no default value to a local variables inside method. So you declare x and y. When you don't give the default initialized value to zeros, you will get an errors like compiling errors, variables not initialized.